Hello, welcome to PM Express, live on the JoyNews channel. And welcome to our first in a series of outside broadcasts. Tonight we're coming to you live from the Kempiski Hotel, and we'll be doing more of this in the coming days. There's a lot happening in the energy sector, and that is why we've tracked down the energy minister to this location, where we'll be interrogating a lot of the things that you've heard about in the last few days, particularly the controversy surrounding the $7 billion that the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, told audience in the UK that Ghana has saved after reviewing power purchase agreements signed under the previous John Mahama administration. That has stirred a significant measure of controversy. Minority challenging the government to produce the evidence to back that claim. They're disputing that 13 power purchase agreements had been terminated because they say these contracts, according to the current administration, were signed under suspicious circumstances.
We know that the sub-region, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Benin, Togo, will prefer to take power from Ghana. And you can only provide power to them where you have excess capacity. That means you have more than what you need, that then you can now supply. And that is why President Mahama invested heavily in the installed capacity and subsequent available capacity, with the ESLA to provide liquidity to the area. So if President Nana Akufo-Addo now comes and say that, oh, they have renegotiated 8, rescheduled 8, and cancelled 11, the first question I want is, and what I want him to do, is make public the 11 cancelled power purchasing agreement and the 8 that has been rescheduled, so that the Ghanaians, including civil society organizations and the minority in parliament, will have the opportunity to scrutinize it. Because you can't be talking of savings without looking at the potential benefits. Because if we exploit this market and can put this power into use by exporting it, I believe that we'll earn more. So the $7 billion assessment was narrowly assessed, as if we need the power for only Ghana. So
tonight we'll be interrogating the details. The energy minister is on the show tonight. And then also, remember that the energy minister, the current energy minister, John Peter Amewu, was a few months ago appointed under a cloud of controversy because his predecessor had just been fired. Why? Because of the AMERI power plant deal. That is one of the biggest controversies that hit the energy sector in a long time. In fact, we've also heard the government is promising, and you'll hear the details of that on this particular program, to abrogate and terminate some 13 oil block licenses. Why? Details here on PM Express. Thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. It's been a very busy day for you today.
Precisely.
Launching Ghana's first competitive bidding round. What does that mean, by the way?
Well, this simply means that a new beginning for our country. It also projects Ghana as one of the emerging countries in the sector that is going to demonstrate the right way of doing things. It means that our democratic dividends, has been added upon in terms of credit. It means that there's going to be a lot of interest in the exploration sector. It means that large players will now have high level of participation. It also means that competition, of course, brings down costs and therefore increased value. So it simply means that Ghana's stake as a result of this competitive process that we're going to introduce is going to be higher than it was. Basically because if 2 people are coming in and one wants to give a take that is of course lower than the other, you should be looking at the higher take. So competition in general is what we are looking at, and the benefit of competition is what we're going to achieve as a result of this bidding process.
It's interesting you're saying that this is the first time we are doing this. So all the oil blocks we've awarded, what was the basis for the award of those oil blocks?
Well, the original understanding and the framers of the initial law, you will agree with me that we have, revised the law, do not make a complete route for competitive processes. So the revised law has really put us in this particular position, which means that we need to, go accordingly. And there are options, of course, though there's an element of competition, the law also provides an alternative for negotiation, looking at the circumstances, So this is where we are today. And I think as a country, we should be projected, at the highest level to the world. Know that Ghana is open up for bidding processes. You
said something in your speech today that 13 licenses that have been awarded since, I think, 2013.
2013 and 2016.
To 2016.
Yes, of course.
They haven't produced anything.
Well, of course, the minimum work obligation expected of those license holders have not been achieved. What it means is that most of the license holders are speculators. Speculators in the sense that they were holding onto the license and looking at the left and right to see whether a neighbor will find oil. Oil, as you are aware, it's straddled between blocks. And so if you are a speculator in between two blocks and there's a possibility of communication, within the block, of course, the speculator invariably achieve a value added to just holding on the block. And this is exactly what they are trying to do. But if you listen to the president carefully, the president directs that those people who are holding or sitting on the blocks without achieving their minimum of work obligation, of course, the alternative is given to them to begin to look for major players in terms of financial capabilities. Of course, if they refuse to do that, there are alternative processes that we need to trigger in terms of the law, and most of them will have to end up losing their licenses.
And in fact, you mentioned directly that you'll be terminating some of these oil blocks.
Well, you cannot continue to speculate whilst you renew your exploration period. There is just a minimum number of time that we can keep on, renewing exploration licenses. And as long as you want to hold on without undertaking your minimum work obligations, of course, it will come out with its own penalty. And that's exactly what we're talking about.
You are acutely aware of the politics of this. And I remember in your speech, you emphasized a time period. It's 2013, 2016. You mentioned it the second time.
Precisely.
That was for emphasis.
Well,
your opponents would not take kindly to that and say you are deliberately.
No. These are facts. These are facts. Between 2013 and 2016, this is exactly what happened within a period of 3 years. This is what the country has witnessed. I want our opponents to come and challenge that within this period, these blocks have not been given. I have no problem. I have no issue against people giving out blocks within that period. The difficulty we have as a country is the number of speculators that are involved in that processes. Where minimum work obligations have not been achieved, people are holding on blocks, and these blocks ought to have been given to more competitive, partners, exploit, develop, and produce for the benefit of Ghanaians, and people are just holding on to it, waiting for nearby discovery. This is unfair. And the rationale and the motivation between that 2013 and 2016 for dishing out those blocks, of course, I cannot explain, but Ghanaians...
What is your best guess? You're talking about rationale. Why would this happen?
Well, maybe with the expectations that discoveries will be made. Maybe, but unfortunately, the holders of those blocks, they don't have the muscle, they don't have the capacity. Some of them are not even undertaking a single work activity. Minimum work obligations, as stated earlier, have not been achieved within those periods. And so we need to move a step further. And that is why that directive, been given.
Has been given. But you've been in power almost 2 years now. You've awarded contract blocks too, haven't you? Your government.
We have not actually awarded
any blocks yet.
Any blocks yet. Blocks have been given out in terms of ratifications, through the parliamentary processes. These are things that started. The ExxonMobil case, for instance, started before. Of course, we
so the bidding round is going to see the first time that potentially you'll be awarding
precisely potential competitive exploration companies. Will be awarded blocks in Ghana through competitive processes.
You're still live on PM Express here on the JoyNews channel. When we return from this break, we'll be dealing with that controversy, the reported saving of $7 billion because this current government claims they had terminated 13 power purchase agreements signed under suspicious circumstances by the John Dramani Mahama administration. When we return, the Energy Minister will address that controversy. Stay with us. Now, let's talk about something else that I'm sure you've been dealing with. The president in London, you were with him in London.
Yes.
And he made a pronouncement that has caused quite significant amount of controversy locally. That you have reviewed power purchase agreements. I think he said 13 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes. And that you've saved 7 billion. The minority says that is palpable falsehood.
Well, we've thrown out the facts. They want an evidence. If you go on Joy Online, I have put the evidence there, so I'm not going to speak to this issue, but any Ghanaian can go on Joy Online and see the evidence.
I saw the document.
It's clear. We don't want to start making noise around this, but it's clear. The evidences are there. This power purchase agreement that have been signed over this period. If we allow them to continue, that was how much we were going to lose. We served this country $7 billion US. I maintain. And any minority member that thinks that what I've put forward is false should come out and challenge it. Those documents have been demonstrated clearly that they are not in interest of this country. How do you continue signing power purchase agreement when you have not made any justifications for demand? These are issues that I'm talking about. Look at the one of the points the minority raised, that we have gone to Burkina Faso to commission the transmission line and blah, blah, and that's why they were signing it. Transmission lines are not the end result of consumptions of power. If you send transmission line, there must be demand. Power travels through transmission line, but there must be distribution, supply, and metering. And that is the only processes which you can sell power. So the mere transmission line alone doesn't give any power to any people. The demand must come from metering, supply, and distribution. And these things are not in existence. We are now putting in mechanisms in place in Burkina Faso to see how we can create more demand. If you go there now, there are over 400 megawatts, that are, riding on the embedded generations in the mines. The Excellency is making sure that we see how we can convert those into the grid. So thinking of the transmission line alone, as they have said ignorantly, for me, when I listened to it, I was laughing. Because you cannot say that because of transmission lines. Transmission line doesn't consume power, it transmits power. Power can only be consumed through metering, supply, and distribution. And this is not available. And this is the point I'm talking about. And so the minority that challenge should go right on your website.
I saw the document on the website, but fundamentally, the reason why you abrogated, terminated the contract is because, as the document explained, you did an analysis based on the committee you set up, and you established that based on your projections of, supply and consumption, there's overcapacity. We're going to have too many redundant, generators, and we're going to be paying for it. The minority will say to you that is foresight. They planned and they put installed capacity. That's the only reason why you can sign an agreement with Burkina Faso
they plan
to sell them power.
What is the demand in Burkina Faso? The maximum they can get is not going beyond 100 megawatts. As I speak today, we're sending about 55 megawatts.
But they say all because of the investments they made in the sector.
And they want to send all these 4,000 megawatts, redundant megawatts to Burkina Faso. Who is going to consume it in Burkina Faso? You do generations based on demand and supply analysis. And so when you are doing power purchase agreement, you do what we call a system planning. And that system planning allows you to know at what particular year you call on a generator. Our demand is about 12.5%, 200 to 300 megawatts. So what it means is that you either decide to hold on 300 megawatts and achieve the year for it to be consumed, or you wait when you are getting to that level, you bring in 200 or 300 megawatts on board. That is consumed. Another year you wait and bring. That is how power planning system is being done. Not to sign 15, 20 generation plants down, take or pay basis. And eventually what they take or pay means that whether you consume that power or not, you have to pay for capacity charge. And these are the amounts that we're talking about. This is recklessly how this country has been positioned. And these are facts and evidence for everybody to see. Look at our gas issues now, the problem we're facing with the Sankofa gas, a demand for gas. When you know very well that Sankofa gas will be coming on board, you went and signed in an emergency power plant agreement and you went and put a car power plant in Tema when there is no means of transporting the gas to Tema. We need to come now and begin to look at methods of relocation.
What are you doing with that?
Well, we have to relocate the car power to Takoradi.
You're moving the car power from Takoradi, from Tema to Takoradi.
Precisely, because the car power will be, will be consuming almost 90 million metric standard cubic feet of gas, and that is so huge. But there's no way the car power sitting in Tema can consume that when the gas in Takoradi is stranded. what motivates them to put this plant in Tema?
You're questioning their motive.
I mean, I can understand. So these are lack of planning, reckless management of the sector. I maintain it. Anybody who wants to come and challenge me should give me reasons why the car power plant was located, in Tema rather than Takoradi, where there's a stranded gas in Takoradi. I mean, these are unquestionables. I mean, these are facts that as a country we need to interrogate.
But Minister, won't you at least give them credit for fixing a problem which was a crisis?
Oh, they never fixed any problem as at the time. What problem have they fixed?
You don't have Dumso now because of all the investments they put in.
What investment? We state categorically that the issues that we witness as a country witnessing this Dumso has to do with financial issues. We stated it categorically. One of our criticisms prior to this election was the fact that it has nothing to do with generations, because we have realized that we are at a margin of generation that is so sufficient for this country. So my brothers, stop procuring the generation. Again, look at what they have done. Never in the history of the previous government have generators gone under competition. There was no competition in generation. Generations and generators were negotiated, and there was no value. And that is why we have high capacity charges. These are problems that have been left behind, and they want to come out and argue, and they want to say that these are not facts. The records are there for everybody to see.
So I mean, but you recognize though. So you don't give them any credit at all.
I got no credit to give them when we were under Dumso. Today the lights are on.
But
everybody.
in 2016, before the elections, Dumso was over.
The Dumso was never over. We were still experiencing because it was a temporal issue, that they put in before the election. Today we have not even fully, when I say fully, in terms of the financial issue, a huge legacy debt is left within the sector. As I speak, we almost have about $2.4 billion legacy debt within the energy sector. This debt is there. You can find out from the various agencies. $2.4 billion. This is the amount of money His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is trying to pay. $2.4 billion. I'm maintaining. And these are facts. And these are legacy debts that have been left down by His Excellency John Mahama and his regime. The people who manage the power sector. These are the debts. They will go out on air today and wanted to deny these facts. These are facts that cannot be denied. These are clear indications of mismanagement. And these are the things that we're talking about.
If things have been mismanaged, in fact, you almost suggest there's financial loss that has been cost us.
Well,
because, for example, the power bar that is in Tema, that you have to move at the cost of the taxpayer, correct?
Precisely.
How much is it going to cost us?
Well, it's quite a huge amount of money.
So a huge amount.
And it's not only moving the power plant. As you move the power plant, you need to create the infrastructure in terms of the platform for the power plant to sit. You need to lay additional pipelines, both through the sea and onshore, before you connect it to the harvesting station to harvest the power to the grid. So all these are money. But all these things could have been done if this plant, right down from beginning, those who were advising the previous government would have thought of this, and we wouldn't be incurring these additional costs of undertaking this activity.
You'll be challenged when people hear you speak like this, that if what you're saying is true, and they've done something as you say they have done, why aren't people being investigated and prosecuted? Well,
you'll get to know soon. The investigation procedures are going on. I mean, but this is clear. What I'm telling you is a clear evidence. I mean, is the power plant in Takoradi? No. Where is the power plant? The power plant is planted in where? In Tema. Do we have excess gas in Tema? No. Where is the excess gas and the stranded gas? In Takoradi. Why did you put the power plant, therefore, in Tema? What system planning did you undertake? These are questions every single Ghanaian can ask. It is not me to ask. People like you can interrogate these issues.
The power purchase agreements you terminated, there's cost attached to the termination.
Precisely, we have examined
$400 million worth of the taxpayers' money is going to be affected because of the termination.
Well, if you don't do those terminations, you end up paying billions of dollars. So there's a cost-value reconciliation analysis that we take into consideration. If you terminate this power plant, what is going to be the cost implication? If you don't terminate it, how much are you going to pay, even though the power plant may not be working because of the take or pay basis? Basically, if they have signed contract agreement that specified take and pay, we wouldn't have any problem. The take and pay simply means that if you use it, you pay. But the agreement Mahama and his administrations under the energy sector have signed is take or pay, which simply means that whether you consume it or you take it or not, Ghanaians must pay. So that socialization cost, that cost of socialization is being paid by every Ghanaian that consumes power. I mean, why should we subject Ghanaians to this?
But to be fair,
some elements of the high tariff is as a result of lack of competition at generation, which has put our tariffs very high. If you have undertaken a competent competition at generations. Of course, competition, as I always say, brings down value, isn't it? Bring down cost and increase value. We will have some minimum level of our tariff. Most of our tariffs are far above, international standard of pricing.
The Attorney General gave you advice on the terminations.
Yeah.
The Attorney General said some of the deals are okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that everything that they did was wrong.
No. That is why we said that those advice given by the Attorney General, some of them are okay, some are to be deferred.
So there's an admission there that everything isn't as bad as you.
But the ones that are bad,
no,
the ones that are bad is the 7 billion that we're talking about. The ones that are good, okay, of course they can take the credit. I am not saying, but we're talking about.
So you are prepared to give them some credit at least. Then.
Well, credit, even those that are good, if they have undergone competition, we still have value for it. So I'm not going to give them any credit. There was no competition in generation. They were all negotiation. And this didn't bring as good value for our tariff. These are facts.
What are you going to do differently with the power purchase agreements? Because you have to sign some. Because if you're, I know you tell me that you're going to be in power for a long time. If Ghanaians allow you that luxury, in the next few years, looking at the demand growing, you have to sign new power purchase
Well, what we have done is to defer some of the power purchase agreement that they have signed.
Okay.
It will not be very good on our part to begin to sign power purchase agreement.
And these companies have accepted to defer?
Well, there are discussions going on.
Oh, so you are not complete with the negotiations?
We have completed some of them. Some have been cancelled, some we discussed. For instance, if a power purchase agreement has been signed to start generating, say, 2020, we want to defer it to, say, 2025. Those who have signed to commence like 2019, which have not come on board, we want to defer them, say, 2024. So those deferment
to take care of the increase in demand.
To take care of the gradual increase in demand. And this is how the system should be planned. But
you raise a very fundamental point. You're still negotiating with these power IPPs, correct? So if you are not done with negotiations, how do you know you've actually saved 7 billion? Because
of course,
anything can happen
if you
in the negotiations.
No. Well,
some may decide will not defer because we signed an agreement. We can sue government for it.
Well, if those of course, no. As for deferment, most of them are agreed to be deferred.
The terminations,
yes.
The ones you're terminating.
Those terminations, it comes with cost. Yeah. But those that we want to defer, they of course agree that we're going to defer them. If you defer in a power purchase agreement that ought to be in the grid today, to commence in the next 5 years. What it means is that the 5 years capacity charge has been saved. Because if they had been planted today to generate, whether you consume it or not from now to the next 5 years, you're going to pay for that generator. So those are all issues that we've taken into consideration. So of course, the agreement has been reached with most of them that we will defer. Those that will be terminated, of course.
Those that will be terminated, you're still negotiating that? It's not fait accompli yet, is it?
I would say 50% complete.
But there's a margin of doubt in there. But you've already put a 7 billion figure on it.
The 7 billion is exactly what I've explained to you.
That is provided all the ones you're terminating say we're okay, we'll terminate, give us our money, walk away.
If you don't even terminate, then the 7 billion is to go higher. So the 7 billion is really at a minimum. If you don't terminate, you pay higher than the 7 billion.
That's true.
Even if you terminate, this is what we are saying, even if you terminate, this is what is bringing us to in terms of the amount of money that we're going to save. Those that we have deferred, of course, if you don't defer, their capacity charges, of course, within the period will also be added. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the cost would have even gone higher. So termination and deferment is the options. Of course, the options have not been fully completed, as I'm telling you, but we are pretty sure on the figure that we are mentioning.
The ECG signed this. The ECG did sign in the document you provided.
Interestingly, there was one of the power purchase agreement that was signed by a minister. And
was that allowed?
Well, the ministry doesn't consume power. Well, it was signed by the minister.
Have you asked the former minister why that happened?
Well, we will get into that.
It appears that there's a lot that you need to probe. And I'm wondering whether
there's a lot need to be probed by Ghanaians, but not me. But Ghanaians that are interested in the good management of this country.
We've given you the mandate to represent us.
Yeah, but you have some of the details than I do. I know the media houses are on top of some of these issues. Of course, there are processes going, as I've stated, to probe some of this. And it is not fair for us as a country and citizens of this country. We need to do things more.
Has the ECG deal under the Millennium Compact Agreement, has it fallen apart? Where are we with that process?
Well, the process is going on pretty good. There have been some challenges.
Some say it's falling apart.
Not at all. Just a week ago, we met with the NEDCO. They raised some sensitive issues, of course, which has major concern to the ministry and to all the stakeholders. NEDCO, one of the issues they brought forward was, for instance, the pairing in terms of the management. Manager 1, Manager 2, Operation 1, Operation 2, that sort of arrangement. And so they brought the issue to the ministry, and we're trying to look at, I think they have genuine concern. You know, as a minister, I look into some of their issues. But, you know, as government, we will look into it.
Have you put the process on hold?
The process is not on hold. Whilst we are negotiating some of these challenges, the process is still going on. You know, that is the part of NEDCO, the part of the ECG. I think we've gone far. We are expecting that either by January, March, you know, there could be a full transfer to the PSP.
The workers, what have you done with their concerns? They've been fighting you for a long time.
They've been addressed. Largely, the concern of the workers have been addressed.
Have you met them yet, since you took over?
Yes, I've met them.
This is PM Express. When we return from this break, you remember that controversy that brought John Peter Amewu to the Energy Ministry? The AMERI power plant scandal. Well, he's been there for a few months now. What has happened to the AMERI power plant deal? That next, here on the PM Express. Stay with us. Let me tell you something that somebody told me, that when you were appointed, within 2 weeks, you solved the AMERI problem.
Well, it's not me, but it's my team. You know, the Ministry of Energy has very competent, you know, staffs there. And I don't work as an individual. You know, I work with my staff. And so I'll give the credit to the ministry for
what did you do with the deal, by the way?
Well, it will come out to public consumption, but I think it's 100% been addressed.
Is it gone to Parliament? You're going to withdraw formally from Parliament when it goes.
Formally, I'll go to Parliament and withdraw the innovation agreement, and then I'll replace the innovation agreement with the new one that. Yeah.
The last time we spoke on this, you said you're sitting down with AMERI to talk. Is that where the success was? AMERI, you finished talking?
Yes, that's a partial index of the success.
Partial index?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Explain.
Well, that's not a conclusive evidence of the success being achieved. It means that other factors like the ministry's role, you know, the styles and everybody's inputs had made it a success.
Okay, so the president has endorsed this latest agreement you have?
It's yet to go to cabinet. We're waiting for cabinet approval, then we'll come to Parliament.
This is going to save us $150 million, correct?
Not up to 150, but we quite save quite a chunk of money. It's above 50 million, thereabouts.
Okay. So that's how much you're going to save?
Yes, of course.
But that is far short of the 150 million we were anticipating.
Well, this savings that we're doing now is just for the 2.5 years. And so if we are saving 2.5 years, almost about 60 million. If we had to work behind, it tell you that we should be saving quite close to 100 million. But this negotiation is just for 2.5 years ahead of us. It has nothing to do with all the invoices that were passed and accepted, you know. But we're looking into the future. And so how does the future look like? The future looks bright, and that is why we are able to recoup this almost about 60 million.
AMERI has come to stay, has it not?
Well, of course, yeah.
So you're not going to sack them and boot them out of the country?
No, they have a contract which ends, you know, in the next 2.5 years. And it's a boots agreement.
So we'll see the contract through?
Of course, we'll see it through.
How is that plant helping you?
AMERI, I think as of today, is doing about 75. It's not a very effective and efficient plant. It's not very effective like plants in Sempower, Asogli, and the rest, and the car power, you know, for instance. But it's in the system. Sometimes it's come, it's being called, you know, supply, and when demand wanted. So but it's not very effective. Yeah.
There's an ambitious plan I heard you mention that you're aiming to produce 1 billion barrels of crude a day in the future. That is ambitious.
1 million.
1 million, you said? Yeah. 1 million. 1 million barrels. Yeah. Forgive me, but that's ambitious.
Yeah, it looks ambitious.
What is it that is informing this ambition? What is it that is giving this confidence?
Currently, we're doing about 200.
From 200 to a million is...
just about 800.
Yeah, but within a short space of time, I understand.
No, within a short space. We look into the medium to long term. You must take into consideration that oil development in terms of infrastructure, at least a minimum of 5 years. Okay, so we're not looking at the short term. We're looking at the long term. And so within the next 10 to 15, 20 years, we should be able to hit, you know, 1 million barrels, depending again on the prospectivity of the field, and then the number of players, their size, their competence, their capability, core competence that we are bringing in. This can, you know, enable us to achieve.
How will today's event feed into that? How will the competitive bidding process you're launching help you achieve this objective?
Precisely, it's one of the major driving factors to trigger that 1 million, because this process is going to allow the major players, you know, more vertically integrated players, ExxonMobil, CNNOC, Aker, BP, Dragon Oil, all those big players are coming into the playing field. And these are players that are not coming to speculate. These are players that are coming to do business. And so we expect that, of course, right down from exploration, development and production, we should be able to increase the target.
The president has a lot of hope in you. We heard him to say today he's confident that you will deliver. But he's also expecting you, he announced there's a new strategy that cabinet has approved. He has approved. That is, I think he called it aggressive exploration strategy. What is that? Give us a bit of detail into that. He mentioned it today briefly in the speech.
Well, the president has a confidence in the ministry. I am the head of the ministry. So every single worker in that ministry, the president has a confidence in that. Even a sweeper who have to come and clean my room to make sure that I sit in a comfortable environment. So the president has confidence in anybody that works in the ministry. Yes, of course, that aggressive strategy, as you rightly put it, it's part of the processes. You would agree with me that we have started some processes in terms of this accelerated capacity building, and also to make sure that Ghanaians take the leadership role. Even achieving this 1 million barrels that we spoke about earlier, Ghanaians will be seen to be taking the front role, and that is why the take in terms of Ghanaian take in general can only increase if Ghanaians are beginning to take this active role. The accelerated capacity building, what it means is therefore to bring in competent Ghanaians, of a certain number or level of technical skills to be able to participate in the process, doing technical works. And let me tell you, for instance, building of a common FPSO, which if we are able to do one in a dry dock in Tema, that should be running into billions of dollars.
Oh, we are planning a new one?
Yes, of course, there will be a new FPSO as we,
increase production.
There's a need for that. If we're able to do one here, we're talking about $1 billion investment, spread into this economy. But if you take it outside and go and do it somewhere in China or Singapore, this is what you're taking away. You are taking away employment opportunities. So all these are components.
Oh, you want to build the FPSO in Ghana?
Yeah, it's possible. It's something we can look at. As I speak today, the chief executive of Ghana National Petroleum Corporation tomorrow is traveling to Nigeria to have a look at their dry dock and see what they can do in terms of bringing similar technical expertise to Ghana. It can be done. I mean, what we've seen in Singapore is not quite different from what we have in Ghana. It's all about the leadership. If you have a leadership that is very ambitious, a leadership that believes that things can be done and done properly, I think that we should be able to achieve it. And I believe in the leadership of His Excellency, the President.
You're talking about a lot of things that sound fantastic. But politicians have all these fantastic ideas. And there's always, I guess, the expression of the vision and the reality and the achievement is always where the devil is in the detail, right? And previously I've said fantastic things as well. What makes you so confident that John Peter Amewu will be different?
One is confident because I'm working under a different president. I'm working under a government that believes in doing things right. I'm working under a president that believes, in the capacity of its indigenous, citizens. And that alone makes me that we should do things differently. And that alone gives me the hope that the government under his leadership is going to deliver results for the benefit of all Ghanaians.
You come from a civil society background. Has that played any role?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm a civil society person. I still have it within
a lot of
me.
the things you are implementing now, you fought for.
Yeah,
I
these
know
are some of the
because-
pre-election criticisms that we came out strongly. For instance, this competitive bidding processes, we were one of the people who argued strongly that the way the Mahama-led administration at that time was dishing out oil blocks, there was a need for competition, and that will bring value and reduce cost. Look at, excuse me to mention, the ACA project, which has run to almost about $8 billion. Under his leadership, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we bring that value down, almost about $1 billion reduction. Why was this not done under Mahama-led administration? If we can reduce, the gas price. The gas price was in excess of $8. Is that not it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now it's about 7 point something. Why was it not done there? These people don't care. Excuse me to say that. We have brought the value down. We've reduced the gas price today. The same contract that was signed under His Excellency John Mahama, the same contract with the gas price, we have reduced it for the benefit of the citizens. It is done under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. They can also do it, but they refuse to do it. And so when we say they don't care for Ghanaians, people don't understand. These are some simple reasons and issues that make me think that the previous administration do not really care for us.
But you talk in glowing terms about what you're doing. But even in this bidding round, you're reserving some of the oil blocks for direct negotiation.
Of course, for GNPC. GNPC is our national
But why? If you really believe in transparency, go the full hog. Why are you reserving some for competitive bidding? You say the previous administration was not competitive.
No, you achieve maximum benefit when you look into your own company, national oil company. We want to build the capacity of GNPC. And that is also one reason. The other reason why you may even want to negotiate is the fact that most of these international oil companies will only go in for areas that are very prospective, the risks and availability of finding it's high. We don't want to go and give a block that you go and dig and there's a dry hole. That, of course, will not speak good for this country. So areas that the data had not been well, laid down in terms of the 2 days, 3 days, and there's no deeper activities, those areas we can still reserve for negotiation. But areas that are very prospective, that you know that there's oil, of course there's no reason why you should go and negotiate for those areas. And these are the reasons.
The EMP bill gives you the power to even ignore the results of the competitive tender that you've just launched.
That tells you how powerful the minister is.
Yes, that's you, Mr. Minister.
Yes.
And I know the law says was make provision for regulation. That will regulate that if you decide to ignore.
Yeah, the regulation processes have been strongly adhered to.
Has the regulations gone though? Have you sent it?
Yes.
Has it been approved by Parliament?
I'm yet to check. But the petroleum regulation and also the petroleum commissions, has its regulations, which more so conform to the regulations that will be derived from the law. So that process is, of course, is there. Without the regulation, most of those things cannot be done.
Let's get a commitment from you because Ghanaians are watching today. It's a big event you've just done. Can you assure Ghanaians who are watching today and saying you're trumpeting how this is going to be transparent, that you are not going to exercise that power, although the Constitution, the law gives you the power, to ignore the results of what is going to happen now that you open the bidding round?
Well, if I happen to ignore the processes, I only do that under the law.
I know the law allows it.
Yes, of course.
But I'm asking you, the Ghanaians are watching you.
Yes, of course. But let me explain the
Yes.
reasons why you cannot do that. You do that for the benefit of every citizen. When the processes, of course, are not going to be fair, when you think that the award processes are not fair, and when you think that companies have not necessarily demonstrated their expectations in terms of the fiscal terms, and when you expect that you should be deriving a higher fiscal terms in the benefit of the owners of these resources, I don't think that anything stops the minister from doing that. But that is extreme. That is extreme. Those items that will trigger the behavior of the minister to undertake that activity is at the extreme. I can promise that the process is going to be fair, transparent. This government, we are very fair and transparent. We believe in competitive processes. So the fairness, of course, will be achieved. These are things that we have talked about, argued for several times, several years. So I can assure all Ghanaians, all participants, all big players in the industry that the process is going to be very fair.
And you respect the outcome of the process?
Precisely.
You would go with what your team, the committee that you put together, the team decides?
Yeah. You see, this particular committee, it's the licensing committee.
Yeah, the evaluation committee.
We're now going to put out what we call evaluating and negotiation committee during the bid processes. Those, of course, will be more technical, people who are more experienced in the area in terms of analyzing the fiscal regime. So they will come out with their negotiation and evaluation. And whatever they come out with, if it is fair to the players, fair to everybody, of course, we will pass it.
There's something you said in the documentary that we saw today, that as for you, the NDs, MPP, you're not going to distribute money, put money in people's pockets. And that what you will do, rather, is to invest in the development project, like Free SHS, for example.
Precisely.
Now, the PIAC, and your good friend, Dr. Steve Matia, has accused the government of spending money in ghost projects. You put money there, you tell the parliament this is what you spend the money on. They can't find the projects. You were in civil society. I know ASAP complained about that, but it still goes on.
Well, I don't think exactly what Dr. Mantiao is trying to champion is right. These are things that, of course, has been done in the past, which we criticize. My issue and the point I raised that we're not going to put money into line up people on the streets and put money into their pocket. It simply means that we have to reinvest and redirect our attention in terms of investing the oil money. And that is what we have started already, making sure that Ghanaians benefit. And the only way the owners of the resources will benefit is to look at the bigger purse. And the bigger purse is education. because it's envisaged that every single household in this country, there is one person, of course, from that house that will be attending school. And so if you are using the oil money to pay, you are distributing the resources equitably. And so I strongly disagree that there are still ongoing, processes of misalignment of
Gov't projects.
Gov't projects.
Gov't projects from 2017.
I strongly disagree with that. I mean,
is this something that you look into at least?
Well, of course, we're going to look into it. We'll examine it and see where those facts are coming from.
Yeah, and how are you dealing with your civil society groups who are now?
I think I have a very good relationship with them. Most of them, of course, my former organization,
the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boachi and others.
Benjamin Boachi. This is our good friend in education. What's the name? Mention it.
Is it Bright Appiah?
Bright and his team.
Yes.
Bright and his team, and so we are in constant, conversation. We need them because we need their input into building of this country. Civil society cannot be thrown out when it comes to issues of development. They are very key. Very key.
Are you working with them?
Yes, of course.
Because I know sometimes power can do that to you.
Well, no, you need to bring them closer. You need to subject yourself to criticism, but the criticism must be done in an environment that, of course, will call for some element, of understanding. And so we have to reach to them. Imani, I was talking about.
Yes, Imani. Yeah,
Imani's been doing
Franklin
Kujo. Been doing extremely well across all these sectors. So these are people you can reach up to. As government, and you are not necessarily on top of issues, and so you also need to look behind, and get some form of advices, or discussions on things that are happening behind you, and so that you can make that as an input into your decision making. Yeah.
Finally, I know recently you were traveling across the world, and you got an award in New York. What was the award?
Yeah. Okay. It was. African Personality of the Year award. It was organized by an institution in the United States of America as a side event of the UN program. And
why did they recognize you?
Well, I don't know. Maybe as a result of the country that we are coming from, Ghana is now projected as one of the good democratic dispensations across the sub-region, and so anybody that tried to excel in the country as a result of our democratic practices, of course, will be looked at. So first, the credit goes to the country, for the peaceful transitions of our democratic era. So I think that could explain the reason. Yeah.
Okay. I'm grateful that you joined us, John Peter Amewu, Energy Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Peter Amewu, Energy Minister, has been my guest on PM Express tonight, and that ministry has been one of the most controversial in our body politic, a poison chalice, most people say. He himself was appointed after a minister was sacked. And then in the John Mahama administration, there's another case of another minister, Dr. Kabla Donko, again, who also lost his job at the same ministry. I'm pretty sure a lot of the things he said tonight will be a subject of some controversy in the coming days. The minority will have their say, definitely. And here at PM Express, we'll be going after that, trying to follow through with some of the allegations that are made. The suggestion that there's going to be a probe into the conduct of the energy sector under the John Mahama administration. These are things that we will be interrogating in the coming days. Thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. My name is Evans Mensah. Join us again tomorrow.